Communication skills in psychology. As a psychologist, one of the key criteria for being able to pursue this profession is the ability to communicate. The main objective is to streamline communication with the customer. We all want to communicate effectively at any time and in front of any person, freely, fluently, without having the feeling of difficulty in expressing clearly, correctly, and concisely the point of view on a particular subject. Regardless of the circumstance, it is necessary to find those words, behaviors that will help us to efficiently transfer the message, information, status, so that the interlocutor can decode the message correctly and in a timely manner. We notice that communication in psychotherapy requires maximum attention for the simple fact that we have man at the center. The client presents to the psychologist with a variety of problems when he wants to find certain answers related to a certain condition, to find resources to solve personal problems, or is in full suffering or pain, mourning. It is a necessity and at the same time a challenge for the psychologist to possess certain skills, both conceptual and technical skills, in order to discover how to successfully cross the clinical field of depression, anxiety, loneliness, problems between parents and children, interpersonal conflicts, eating disorders, addictions, marital disputes, sexual dysfunction, rape, trauma of various forms, etc. Although each person is unique, and each case is particular, there are elements that have to be solved due to the communication skills of the psychologist. One of the most complete but at the same time flexible definitions of communication can be recognized, that of Louis Forsdale. Communication is the process by which a system is established, maintained and modified through common, shared, signals that act according to rules. Communication was and is the most important step in establishing the relationship with the client. We have in our arsenal a series of elements, words, facial expressions, techniques, through which we can exchange messages. For the psychologist, communication is the active process of transmitting, receiving and decoding information, through which psychologist-client communication partners, through the exchange of linguistic and non-linguistic messages, interact. In particular, it is a necessity for the psychologist to have the skills of active listening, decoding and detecting the received message, the ability to provide correct and clear answers to questions asked by the client, to clearly interpret non-verbal language, to motivate the interlocutor so that he can hold the conversation. The main components that belong to communication through which we transfer information to the rest of the conversation partners: verbal, non-verbal and paraverbal. We pay attention to the fact that the logical level represents about 7% of the total communication act, 38% is the paraverbal level, tone, volume, intensity, speech rhythm, and about 55% is the non-verbal level. Attention, active listening, empathy in communication, time allocated, are the main elements in achieving effective communication, and in establishing a relationship based on trust with the client. The quality of the information obtained by the psychologist during the psychotherapy sessions is closely related to the communication skills held by him, but also by the client. The psychotherapist-client relationship is one of the fundamental elements aimed at psychotherapy. In psychotherapy, communication acquires a therapeutic role and refers to medical psychology. According to Pia Popescu-Neveanu, medical psychology is the science that studies the psychology of the patient and his relationship with the environment, his subjective connections with the medical staff and the family. It concerns the patient not only from the point of view of the disordered organism, but also from the point of view of his subjectivity, of his human nature. Politzer also confirms that medical psychology is the psychology that puts at its center the drama of the human being in a state of illness. It follows that communication is a planned, deliberate and professional act, which aims to establish a positive human relationship, a relationship that will achieve the objectives of support, understanding, healing, which is achieved using communication techniques for therapeutic purposes, based on verbal, non-verbal and paraverbal communication, and communicating with clients as a psychotherapist is the complex process that requires training through the baggage of purchases already acquired. Attention, involvement, effort and time. Any psychologist must not only have practical and technical knowledge that can be applied during the therapeutic process, it is necessary to be acclimatized to the individual psychology of the patient. For practicing psychotherapy, special skills are indispensable. Some have a general or common character necessary for each intellectual activity and are based on the existence of the general aptitude of higher intelligence. but the psychologist's profession requires particular skills such as the ability to communicate regardless of partner and situation, receptivity, observation, focus on the subject, observation of essential qualities, principles, and values such as dignity of the human condition, wisdom, patience, trust, integrity, respect, love, compassion, kindness, empathic understanding. We notice the importance of communication skills in the psychologist-client relationship. There are ethical and moral reasons, as well as professional ones, which force us to provide the client with relevant information. We find that communication is a tool we have to be used daily, both in the family and at work, to end friendships through practice and daily training. We benefit from continuous improvement. The purpose of psychological communication requires the establishment of a therapeutic relationship, as well as understanding the patient's perspective, knowing and investigating thoughts and emotions, guiding the patient in solving problems. The basic components necessary for communication, implicitly for therapeutic communication, are existence of a communication channel between sender and receiver, confidentiality, securing the relationship, respecting the limits, self-disclosure, reaching, observing, active listening, acceptance, ability to observe, decoding the message, feedback from the customer. Communication skills facilitate the achievement of a trusting relationship psychologist-client, which aims to obtain a solid alliance, with the aim of improving the quality of life, implicitly his health, while enhancing the psychologist by increasing its prestige. The psychologist-client relationship is based on true, authentic communication. This in turn involves active listening and recognition of values and at the same time invading the other's inner world. In his research Ich and Du, Me and You, Martin Buber, 1958, argues that dialogue is a relationship of mutual openness, with sincerity and authenticity. According to the relationship between I and you, the personality of each one develops, the mutual respect, the openness of each one for, and towards the other. Dimitriou, 2004. According to the resulting dynamism, the narrow boundaries of the ego are dissolved, leading to its dissolution, resulting in an authenticity of dialogue and communication, of building together of the revealed truth. The spirit is not in me, but in the relationship between me and you. Freud, 1964, argued the existence of an ethical ideal that is dominant in the behavior of the psychotherapist. He wrote that the relationship between analyst and patient is necessary to be based on the love of truth and remove any trace of falsehood or deception. We find the existence of common characteristics of psychotherapists such as the degree of tolerance and non-evaluative acceptance of the patient as factors in order to accelerate progress in psychotherapy, assertiveness and non-aggression alike, successful in clarifying problems, emotional warmth and understanding, present support and psychological comfort, to show a deep respect for the patient, to stimulate the client psychologically, to offer useful advice, not to label, to have humor. Regarding emotional maturity, Rogers warns that the psychotherapist is necessary to act in an aseptic manner on establishing and maintaining emotional ties, so it is subordinated to the purpose of determining and motivating the client to feel autonomous. Lazarus, 1987, Appard. Dimitriou, 2004, states that obtaining useful and effective answers from the therapist aims at the following common features: concise and accurate phrasing, the ability to perceive content from the speech of the patient with a high emotional load, showing a deep respect for the patient, and communicating that she understands him. Communication involves more than the transmission of information. It is a process that includes several people whose goal is the exchange of information, support, and mutual understanding, addressing difficult and painful topics, difficult emotional states. It requires time, but also responsibility, dedication, and the desire to clarify and understand the client's concern. Psychotherapists' communication skills. Among the communication skills we find, focusing the communication between the client and the therapist on aspects, problems, with immediate character, improving the client's decision-making capacity, ensuring an appropriate, secure environment, gaining the client's trust and respect. Use of empathic communication, such as listening, encouragement, paraphrasing, reflecting feelings, summarizing, facilitating the patient's expression of what is being communicated to him, clarifying information that cannot be understood, the possibility of expressing emotions, fear, anger, anxiety, non-verbal encouragement such as nodding, and verbal encouragement, yes, well, continue, really, sure, of course, Normal. To facilitate communication, verbal and nonverbal language are used, using an appropriate verbal flow, intonation, and appropriate tone. It is intended to use a language adapted to the will, according to the training, but also to the cultural and spiritual preferences, avoiding the specialized terms, the jargon-type language. Evaluating the information detected by the client, repeating important information, possibly can be communicated in writing. For a more effective interaction, the psychologist must have interpersonal and relational skills. For example, the ability to structure the dialogue, the ability to provide easy-to-understand information, maintain adequate eye contact at regular intervals during the dialogue, maintain an open posture, face and gaze towards the interlocutor, indicating listening and interest, arms crossed, relaxing attitude, recourse to nonverbal communication by nodding, repeating the patient's last statement, using silence appropriately, allowing the patient to put his thoughts, feelings, empathy towards the client in order, asking short and clear questions on understanding the client. Obtaining informed consent, supporting the client in coping with anxiety, offering lifestyle advice, identifying risk factors, etc. The purpose of the psychotherapist. The purpose of the psychotherapist, direct guidance by providing instructions, only if the client asks and if the therapeutic relationship has been achieved in the form of homework. Providing information, specific to the presented a general problem, that is important both for awareness and for increasing the effect. When we feel man's need to be informed, we speak in the language of the client, we give the information a particular character, of secret, if it makes sense, if invested with authority, such as British researchers. Interpretation of information, assigning meaning, is the tool used in all therapies and can be evaluated as deep, superficial and medium depth. Its purpose, it consists in detecting the causes, it makes sense, it is a reason to interpret what you experience. When we offer interpretation, we respond to the person's need to oppose his uncertainty, because there is a man's need for coherence, meaning, certainty which, no doubt, opposes uncertainty. In other words, there are mechanisms for reducing uncertainty, such as reflex mechanisms, rationality mechanisms, and suggestive mechanisms. Therapeutic communication techniques and the role of the psychologist. Active listening. The psychologist mobilizes his full attention in order to understand the client's message in compliance with the following rules. He faces the patient who speaks, looking him in the eye, adopts a relaxed attitude, does not distract the interlocutor by sudden movements, approves when he reveals important things. The psychologist must be impartial, curious, to watch how the other thinks and how he manifests. To intervene when necessary, to accept the other's rhythm when the other is ready to speak. Normalize, then return when ready. He may say, you know, at one point you told me about. Acceptance is the willingness to listen to a person's message, no doubt even in case of differences of opinion, is tolerant, does not interrupt the conversation, repeat to check if he understood, will ensure that his non-verbal messages correspond to verbal messages. The questions represent the way of direct communication and initiate the verbal interactions that occur in a certain logic and are related to the topic under discussion. Paraphrasing is the rendering of the client's message in his words to observe the correctness of the understanding. Clarification when a misunderstanding arises. Focus equals centering the message on a specific topic. Communicating the necessary information and in accordance with the client's requirements. The piece offered in order to organize thoughts. The power ratio, borders, alliances are observed. To teach the client how to express his needs, without feelings or anger. How to process and work unresolved issues. To provide a safe environment. Identifying periods of homeostasis. Identify the factors that maintain homeostasis. Development of assertive communication skills, learn to express their needs, find optimal solutions in a secure environment, look at the problem through the eyes of all those involved in the system. Identifying dysfunctional patterns. Analyze the functionality of the family. Identifying emotions and managing emotional mechanisms. Establish the level of self-differentiation, the client to discover its authenticity, individuality in the system. Summarizing the main ideas. Homework. The customer makes the change. Theme example, hunt the other's qualities. What would you like about the other? What did you like? To know the starting point. An atmosphere of security is created, and the connection with the family is made. They begin to explore resources, achievements that favor the changes of the problem and change the situation. This can be a topic when it comes to divorce. The therapeutic process. When we begin a therapeutic process, which involves communication, interaction, we must clarify our purpose. Formulation of the problem, objectives, hypotheses, the problem it comes with. We observe the dyads, the relationship of friendship. In case a couple comes, they support each other. In case one tells, the other helps the narrator to feel understood. We observe the story if there is a parallel process behind the actual communication. Is it the need of the psychologist, the need of the client? Why am I here? Let's keep in mind what the other person wants and what we want. We need concrete, punctual things. How? Where? When? Who? What the? We must pay attention to small problems, insignificant to us, to be vigilant. They matter to the other. We notice the difference between people, attitude, opinion, impact, consequences of these differences. The impact of rhythm on the other. The psychologist asks, I wonder what the rhythm is, how does it work? It can be structure, personality, or defense mechanism, consequences. For example, the mother takes over everything, the father returns, as a consequence he blasphemes. Why do they go from nest to nest? What does he mean? We check the normalization of differences when there are differences of understanding. Or as cognitive consequences, we need to unbalance the system when we are ready to intervene. When we take something out, we put something else in place. We pay attention to functionality in the family, we look for and find solutions. If you eat compulsively, it means that it is an emotional problem, or it is about losing an attachment. In this case, we teach the client to manage his emotion. We notice what he communicates through nonverbal language, sadness, frustration, anger, rage, disappointment, which transmits the gaze. Verbalize, how do you feel? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much? Repeating the exercise decreases the emotion. I notice the behavioral landmarks, and I verbalize, I notice that you frowned, changed your tone, put your arms out, etc. In order to make the other one open up, I wonder what emotions this conveys. Cognition can be altered by emotion, and sometimes emotion is more important. Our message is vitiated by fears, anxieties, and personality structures. If I am cognitively dominated, I expect the other message to be cognitive, not emotional. You teach the client to check, to ask questions to the partner about what he feels, what he wants to convey. If he smokes, wants to socialize with others, we focus on learning. The more he thinks, the more he rationalizes, the more the client gets stuck in dysfunctional thoughts. As psychologists, we are not allowed to make premature interpretations, we verify the intention, the beliefs of the other. What is he thinking? It is not necessary to cling to the theory, to the past, to the explanations of the discussion partner. The story helps us to achieve the client's goals. We ask him, what do you want? I want this. Our role is to bring out the emotions. When the story is too cursive, we ask for confirmations, not changes. The stories are built by them. What does this mean for you? What does this awaken in you? Take out the story, add something. We can put pressure, power. They also come to us and we are careful with what other rationalizations are connected. Why do you think I'm different from others? What qualities does the client see in me? We have some characteristics inside us, we take out of ourselves needs that we bend. Most psychologists find themselves in the story. You are amazed by the suffering, or by the emotion. It is a generalization, or a similarity. When they come in line with a topic, we turn to ourselves and ask what messages they send for us. Those who need to come, as a rule, the cases come to power. What does the client need from me? I ask him, what do you expect from me? We are looking for mechanisms to get out of the story. Faith, thought, awakens an emotion, an information. I show the landmarks and close, I notice the vulnerability. It is necessary to hear both cognitively and emotionally. I notice in the client the cognitive dominance. I ask him, other customers have felt. Is it a form? Is it valid for you too? You become curious and put the problems in the client's arms. Objectives pursued in communication. There are positive, growth goals, formulated in the first person, and aimed at increasing the quality of life. I want. What does the client want? The reason for coming to the office clearly stated is interesting. What are his expectations? In time we will notice that it changes. The objective is formulated in a special, punctual, well-defined, positive way. The goals are for oneself, then for others. Conclusions. If a psychotherapist does not have a vocation for the profession, and the necessary qualities such as a high degree of self-acceptance, respect and trust in the other, inner balance regarding the ability to adjust the intensity of inner feelings, availability, patience, empathy, warmth, authenticity, confidentiality, ethics regarding the guarantee of the physical, sexual, social and psychological integrity of the client's dignity during the therapeutic process, the communication skills are useless in his relationship with the patient. They use only if all the conditions listed above are met. The satisfied client values and confirms the authenticity of the therapist.